Field Experience Analysis Project by Leah Becker. Welcome to Roundtown Elementary School, located at 570 Church Road, York, PA 17404. I attended Roundtown Elementary School on October 5th, 2016, October 19th, 2016, and October 26th, 2016. I had the pleasure of working with Mrs. Ann Strayer. Mrs. Strayer teaches in a general education classroom at Roundtown Elementary. The school practices a system of rotating teachers. Last year, Mrs. Strayer taught second grade, and this year she has them again as third graders. Students in this third grade class range from ages 8 to 9. There was only one student with a confirmed disability and IEP. The student was a female Caucasian with a hearing impairment. The percentage of students with an IEP was 0.4%. There were 2 other students in the class that Mrs. Strayer considered having assessed. Team seating was the first best practice that I observed. Mrs. Strayer seated students that needed more help academically with students that were excelling. However, students did not know this is the reason that they were seated in that seat. I like this idea because it allowed students to help each other and work together without having to feel inferior. Organization was the second best practice that I observed. When asked what she considers to be one of her best practices, Mrs. Strayer said organization. Everything was clearly labeled in this classroom, which helped Mrs. Strayer get through everyday activities quickly and more efficiently. Mrs. Strayer created a word wall for her students in the beginning of the year. It is a fun way for students to improve their linguistic skills without having to feel pressured in front of other students. Kids can refer to the word wall when trying to use colorful words or no excuse words. Our helpers was my favorite best practice to use in Mrs. Strayer's classroom. It was a system where students were picked to do jobs around the class. The students also said that this was one of their favorite things about Mrs. Strayer's classroom. I think that our helpers also helped students work on good behavior because they wanted to be on the Our Helpers board the following week. This is the technology station in Mrs. Strayer's classroom. I unfortunately was unable to photograph the entire station because it had the students' names on it. This is what the students see above the technology station, the effects of online usage, and their carbon footprint. I consider this a best practice because the students use technology in most aspects of their day. They were able to play word games and practice their math skills. There were programs for different students with different academic needs. I like the technology station because it even had iPads for students with peanut allergies. Materials and models. The first thing that this teacher used was called Mrs. Strayer's Star of the Week, which was a board that used recognition to make the students feel good about themselves. I was unable to photograph the Stars of the Week board because it had pictures of the students on it, but I thought it was important to incorporate it into my project because the students really seemed to like it and it affected their behavior because they wanted to be the next Star of the Week. The next material and model was a chair that the students were allowed to sit in when they were the Star of the Week. They seemed to really like this because they got to sit with their team members, but they also got to sit in a different seat beside a desk. And this really affected their behavior again because they wanted to be the next Star of the Week and sit in the chair, so they behaved a lot better than one normally would. Before this placement, I did not have a lot of experience working with individuals with disabilities. I liked the school that I was placed in, but there was only one student with a disability in the class that I was in, so there wasn't as many examples of adaptations in the classroom as I had hoped for. My beliefs about special education and inclusion really did not change. I still hold the belief that students with disabilities deserve to be in the same classroom as other students and receive the same education. This experience has specifically impacted my beliefs about special education because it furthered my knowledge on the importance of adaptations in the classroom. I want to know what teachers do to make the environment more comfortable for students with varying ranges of disabilities. Also, what can I do to better the lives of students with disabilities? I want to become a really organized teacher in the future because it seems to help them in a big way. I also plan to incorporate specific organization with records such as DRAs and IEPs.